Ella Hooper, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be with Australian Musician.
Yeah, you're just about to hit the road with a bunch of new songs and a new band on the Old News tour. How long has it been since you toured your own music?
It's been a while. It's been, I do little spot shows here and there, but never a whole tour and never, in support of, not never, but it's been about 6 years, I'd say, since it's been in support of my own new music. And yeah, it feels really, really good. It feels like overdue, but of course we did have a pandemic in there as well. So it's the right time.
Yeah. So tell me about your band.
It's so exciting. We just had 2 almost full day rehearsals yesterday and the day before. So I've got the full drums, keys, bass set up and a ripping electric guitarist. So we've got Mick Hubbard on electric guitar. He's been featured in bands like Jen Clower and the Endless Sea and the Blue Bottles, a great sort of surf rock instrumental band from Melbourne. Matt Watson on drums, and he's actually also known as a bit of a synth aficionado, really incredible art musician background, but I have played with him before in more folk rock bands. Mads Davey on keys. She's an incredible composer, VCA alumni who, can compose for strings and symphonies and all of that, but she's an amazing keyboardist and organ player and a bit of a synth wizard as well. And then we've got Nick Imfeld on bass, on electric bass, and he's a singer-songwriter from Melbourne, really great bass player, but also great singer, great sort of all-round muso as well.
Yeah. So how are the songs shaping up in rehearsal, and how are you going remembering these new lyrics?
Well, funny you should say that. There's some songs are tripping me up because they are so fresh and it takes a while. Like, honestly, sometimes at the end of the tour, you're like, yeah, we're really getting that now. You're really finding your comfy spot with delivery and just remembering the damn things, but not bad. I'd say I'm sort of 85 to 90% of the way there. And we've got one more rehearsal scheduled for Monday night before the tour starts on Thursday. And that should be the icing on the cake, the one where it all just crystallizes.
Yeah, so no stress at all.
No stress. I'm not stressed. Like, worrying about ticket sales and no, it's actually been such a pleasure. I've been really, really chuffed with how it's sounding. It's the funnest part of my job is, putting great musos together in a room and bringing it to life. And I'm quite honoured to be playing with a band that sounds this good. It's really exciting.
Yeah. So has your appreciation of other songwriters changed over the last couple of decades? Are you discovering songwriters for different reasons now?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a very big fan of the 60s, 70s singer-songwriter kind of greats, like, and especially even your sort of Americana legends and alt country legends. There's something in that songwriting, the craft of it, the way each song tells a story and they hang together as individual stories, really. That's always been my sort of special interest area, even though people would think I'm a rock and roll girl because I come from a rock and roll background. It's not actually what I listen to at home. At home, it's always been Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Emmylou Harris, Townes Van Sant, Graham Parsons, Ryan Adams, Lucinda Williams, stuff like that.
Yeah. I heard a radio interview that you did the other day, and you were talking about how much of yourself to reveal in songs and how much you disguise in metaphors. I interviewed a musical couple once who both had individual music careers, and I asked them if they felt free to write without the other partner wondering if aspects of the song were about them. And I kind of got an awkward response, and they're actually not together. They're not together anymore. But is it easy? Is it easier to take the metaphor road?
Definitely. I think that a good amount of metaphor in there is beautiful because it's quite poetic. It can lend itself to being very poetic. But as I've been sort of going deeper with my own writing, I am realizing that honest is also poetic. Like, you know, sometimes that real specificity and real names, real places, real incidents can be just as poetic and very, very affecting. So I'm sort of using a blend at the moment, but I still get really nervous about whether people are going to call, you know, hear a song and be like, is that about me? You know, it's quite confronting, but you have to do it anyway, because yes, of course, our material comes from our real lives. For the most part, for me, you know, sometimes I let myself write from dreams and, you know, or other people's stories that I've heard or books that I've read, movies that I've watched, but 90% of it is from my interactions, and I keep a pretty small circle. So these people probably know it's about them.
The current single is Old News, written in Nashville with Sarah Duga. Tell me about Sarah.
Oh, she's awesome. She's great. She and I met there in I think it was 2019, just pre-pandemic shutdown, and it was such an amazing trip for me. I met some wonderful people. I was hanging out with Jim Lauderdale, who is a bit of a mentor of Sarah's, and we met at his gig and we just hit it off like that. You know, we clicked and we stayed in touch, and we were going to do some writing sessions there, but we just ended up having too much fun and just became friends instead. And then we started Zooming when I went back home to Violet Town and sort of bunkered down there for a couple of years. We kind of kept each other sane a little bit. You know, we'd get online, spend a few hours workshopping song ideas and just talking about our lives and everything that was going on. And it was a lovely lifeline to have to what felt like the rest of the world, or, you know, somewhere outside my tiny town, and how sort of locked in and intimate and small life was becoming. It was a great way to sort of break it back open for a sec and share something with someone so far away. And yeah, they say, she likes to say she's too country for country. And I'm like, well, I'll bring the old country. She brings the country. And she just thinks I'm so kooky because I've had this pop rock and roll background, and it brings something, you know, the mix is quite unusual, but it really works.
Do you enjoy writing with other people?
It depends. It really depends. I have had great experiences with it and some not so great experiences with it. Sometimes it was a bit forced upon me back in the Killing Heidi days. We'd get set up for co-writes after the first album, Reflector, which was all written by me, myself, and Jesse, my brother. You get signed to the major labels and they want to repeat the hits and stuff like that. So they're like, oh, well, you know, go and have a write with these guys, have a write with these guys, this person, that person. And that was, sometimes fantastic, always a learning experience. I don't regret any of the co-writes that I've done. Even when they weren't fruitful, you learn so much about what you do like and about what's the sort of language you do feel comfortable using and the methods that you like using as a songwriter. So it always shows you something. But lately, I tend to only gravitate towards co-writes with people that I feel like I'm clicking with. And that's not for everybody. Some people just like to get in there. They don't care who it is. They can bang out a great song together. That's fantastic. But I think I'm still a bit more sensitive and shy like that. I really prefer to sort of know the person first, or have a lovely connection with them, and then see if anything comes out.
So Old News and the other song that we've heard, Achilles Heel, from the upcoming album Small Town Temple. When did you start thinking about putting songs together and actually doing a whole album?
That was in 2020. I'd been wanting to write in my breaks from touring for years, and really sort of put something together. Like, I'm always writing song ideas, but not always finishing song ideas. That's my Achilles heel, is actually getting the song finished and then putting it into production and quartering off that time to just let things grow and develop. And so the silver lining of lockdown for me was there was finally time to really craft the album. And that's when, Small Town Temple, that was basically, I wanted to write about where I was and what I was doing. And I was living in Violet Town in my mother's church, which our sort of family home there is a 110-year-old weatherboard church. So, and it's also a real sort of center of the community where people come together to do yoga. They have gigs there. It's sort of an Airbnb sometimes. It's an amazing building, but it's also where I have like a bedroom and my piano, and you know, the stuff that you keep at your mum's place. So I was very lucky to have this very inspiring space to write about. And Small Town Temple and all the songs on that are kind of about Violet Town. They're about that community, about my girlfriends growing up there and that I'm still really close with. And yeah, so 2020, 2021 is where it started to kind of come together.
Yeah. Does Violet Town have a country music vibe? People in the area into country music?
Not as much as you would think. I mean, surprisingly, not that I really know of. It's around, but growing up, I didn't get to go to rodeos or anything like that, or, you know, nothing like Tamworth. And it's not even, you know, I should be careful what I say, but it's not that musical of a region, which was why growing up, it was so sort of strange that we came out of that spot and had to travel down to Melbourne every weekend on the train as kids to sort of get the gigs and find the gigs. Occasionally great players would come through and do a gig at the pub, or we would go to folk festivals as a family, as children, but we'd often have to travel to go to those folk festivals and travel to get that music fix. So maybe I'll make it a country music epicenter finally.
Your mum and dad bookend the album. Tragically, they passed away during the pandemic. But you must be so happy that you thought to include them on the album.
I really don't. I mean, I don't even know how to talk about how grateful I am. And I think it was always, you know, it's always been something in the back of my mind, even though my parents weren't musicians. They really were. Like, they could both sing and play and tinkle and had great ears, just untrained, and they didn't call themselves musicians, but very creative people and huge music fans. Like, they are why we became musicians, because in their mind they were like, couldn't think of anything better than choosing a life in music. So very different to other kids that I grew up with, where their parents were like, obviously that's just a hobby, like you would never take that seriously, that's like your B, C, D, E, F, G plan. But in our household, it was totally fine for that to be plan A, because of their obsessive love of music. So I always did want to think, you know, I was like, I should put mum and dad on a record one time, you know. So yeah, and I didn't realize how prophetic or important or weirdly, there's no word that I can sort of, that feels right about how special that feels, or, you know, some weird intuition must have told me to do it, because man, now they're there and the album is about them too. It's just crazy.
Your brother Jesse appears on the album too. Is he on a lot of tracks?
He's just on one. So everybody gets one, or actually mum gets several, because she's got a great voice, and she's sort of singing throughout it with her friend Jojo Smith, who is a fantastic muso. I mean, one of the best kept secrets. If you don't know Jojo Smith, check her out. She's an incredible blues soul sort of artist who I've grown up with as one of my mum's very good friends, and now my very good friend. So mum and Jojo do BBs on, I'd say, like 5 tracks. Dad plays recorder on the final track, and Jesse plays guitar on one song, which is sort of his song. So everyone gets a song.
So was it recorded in Nashville or here?
Recorded here. Yep. And just inspired by that trip to Nashville very much. But I haven't been back there since, which is really, you know, I'm desperate to get back. But it was also great to make it here with some familiar people, some very trusted collaborators. Tim Harvey, who is a great muso in his own right, but also a producer, and his partner in crime, Marcel Boric, who again is a great musician, but also a great producer. And we just did it, pretty much all of it, which is not how it sounds, but it was recorded piecemeal with the 3 of us, sending things backwards and forwards, getting studio time when we could, when we weren't locked down. And then we'd get locked down again, and we were like, okay, well, I'll write another song. But as soon as we were unlocked, I'd race to Melbourne and we'd put down some tracks.
Yeah. Is it actually finished?
Yes, it's all finished and printed and pressed and sitting in my wonderful PA's storage cage in her house. There's vinyl, there's CDs, everything's made.
Oh, great. Yeah. So we'll see it by the end of the year?
Early next year. So there'll be some more singles out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's Tammy in the background now. We can see. That's my PA who fed me here for this interview. I reckon, yeah, early next year it's going to come out. And yeah, I can't wait for people to hear it.
Yeah, I see from your social media posts at rehearsal that you're up front playing acoustic guitar with the band. Tell me about your guitar. What is it and how did you acquire it?
It's a lovely little Maton. I have a few guitars, but that was the one I call Little Lady, who I've actually had that guitar very generously gifted to me by Maton when I was about 16. So early Killing Heidi days, you know, such a staple of the Australian music industry, Maton. I mean, I don't know many Aussie musos without a favourite Maton, you know, or several if you're my brother.
Yeah.
And it just really suits me. The tone of it. I mean, I find them quite individualistic Matons that I played of other people's. They vary a lot, and I don't know whether that's how they've been used over the years, but because I've had that one since I was 16, I've written so many songs on that guitar. And I am no fancy guitarist, but I know enough chords to write the kind of songs that I want to play. And I think I've got a pretty good right hand, you know, not bad on the rhythm. Left hand can be a little bit haphazard sometimes. You might hear a few bung notes on my fretboard, but as long as I'm holding down the rhythm and supporting the far better players than then I'm happy.
I've always admired your ability to have your fingers in so many pies, from music to TV to theatre to corporate stuff. How important is that diversity of work to you?
Yeah, I think it is important. I've always had ants in my pants. I just don't like to do the one thing too consistently for too long. I get bored, and then I also feel like it makes me a little bit. You stop appreciating what it is about that one thing. You can have too much of a good thing, even, you know, being in a really successful pop rock band or whatever. That's great, but I hit the point, I think, earlier than most where I feel like I've wrung it dry and I need to change it up and challenge myself or shock myself or try something scary like radio. Going into TV and radio was really exciting but terrifying, and I was really crap at it for the first few years. You know, I was like, hello, Paul Kelly, welcome to the Tuesday Night Live or whatever show I was doing back then. You know, I had to learn the ropes again of how to be a host and how to be a presenter, and now I feel like that's a skill set I really have, and I love working in that area and feel quite confident with that role. So, but then I'm always like, so what's next? Maybe I've got to write a stage show or, you know, do a book or something. I love learning.
Yeah. The tour starts very soon and finishes up in November. What's the plan for the rest of the year and heading into 2023?
Well, 2023 is stacked. I'm really excited about 2023. And, you know, to be honest, I didn't know that I'd do anything this year with mum and dad passing away, and it's just coming out of COVID as everybody is. I always saw 2022 as a possible setup year and a healing year, and try and take some time to sort of get my head on straight. But because I'd already been working on the album so much and when it was sort of ready to go, I was like, no, I think I will start releasing music from it this year. But I do see it more so as coming to life even more next year. So there'll be more touring. There'll be an album tour early next year, I think around February. And then I'm going to see if I can maybe get some international supports in the middle of the year, or supports with other bigger artists, because I love doing that too. You know, I like to, again, with that learning thing, it's so amazing when you get taken under the wing by an older artist or a bigger artist or someone who's more maybe established in that Americana alt country kind of world than I am. I'd love to go and sort of study with them by supporting someone on their tour. So that's all sort of in the pipeline.
Okay, Ella. So the tour kicks off on October 20 in Perth. We look forward to the album coming out early next year and some singles in between. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Come to a show and I'll put you on the door. It'd be lovely to see you in the flesh.
Thanks, Elle.